welcome back to the Rebel Show. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. It's an awesome Saturday. We're still hitting the 80s here in Colorado. So last week we started talking about just issues of the day. I didn't get very far, and I'd like to continue that this week. There's a lot of issues. You know, the Bible talks a lot about how we should look at politics, just daily life, daily behaviors, and stuff like that. And I think it's important to have a biblical worldview that we consider those. And anymore, we're getting into a society that just talks about my truth, and this is true to me, and you can have your own truth. And I think there's only one truth. And things tend to work better when you follow the program that God put out there. You know, this show is designed to reach Christians. You know, I heard a stat the other day that said something like 50% of Christians don't even vote in elections. You know, if we could get a few more percent of those voting, we could landslide most elections, and we could just change the nation and get people back, get the Congress and government back working for us. And that's really the goal of the show, is to put us back in a position where we're functional again, and that where people aren't so destroying their lives. You know, there's a lot of junk out there, and it's really hurting people. And they believe a lie about themselves or how they feel or what they think, and it's really damaging. And, you know, our job as Christians is to love people and help them and tell them the truth. You know, the truth is information that's important, because you can deal with problems if you understand the truth, right? If you have truth put in front of you, if you're honest, you can deal with that. But if you're lied to or something, then it's really harder to solve problems if you're dealing with false information. But if you have the truth laid out there, you can solve things so much easier. So I was just thinking about these different topics that are hot topics nowadays, and I was just going to give some thoughts on them. You know, the Bible, we'll talk about healthcare a little bit, and the Bible tells Christians to lay hands on the sick. You know, Jesus went around a lot and healed people, and sick people pursued him, you know, and nowadays we have this healthcare system that's it's a great healthcare system. You know, people come from all around to come to the United States to get good health care. You know, right now most healthcare is provided by the private sector. You know, we don't have overwhelming government regulation on it. It's worse now than it's been before. And we have the best free market healthcare in the world. That's why everyone wants to come here, you know. You know, government is pretty good at doing pretty much nothing, right? So we wouldn't want to give health care to them. That's important in my opinion, because everyone's been to the DMV. Some people have been to the VA, and we don't want DMV health care, right? And if they get in a position where government employees make decisions on our health care versus us and doctors, it typically works out to where it's just rationing of care, because there's not enough money for government to do this. There's not enough influx of cash to do this. That's why we need the free market to do it. I'm so free market and less government and all types of business things. I say, let's keep healthcare in the private sector, and let's not do price controls, because think about it. If the government comes in and says, all right, this pill costs this much, you can only charge this much for it. You know, these businesses are going to go out of business. These pharmaceutical companies will go out of business, and then we won't have access to those needs, right? And I think that's important, to let the free market do it, you know? One thing the government does when it tries to take over industry is it squeezes the system and doesn't allow innovation. And that's what we need. We always need to be innovating, and it always comes through the need, and private business is good at doing that. So that's my healthcare thoughts, right? So let's go on to welfare. You know, God told the church to take care of the widows and the poor. We don't have that happening much anymore. We've given it over to government. Churches should be doing it. And the church gave this power to the government, and now it's so bloated, like we don't even know if people need to be on the system. I mean, able working people should not be able to collect welfare, and we should not have people for generations on the program, right? There's multi-generations that just live on welfare. If you can work, you should be working, and if you can't, then it's a different story. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a system for people that need it, but it should be maintained in such a way that it's not empowering people to be lazy. And I think it should be temporary in some cases. And we should limit what people can buy. Like, you shouldn't be able to buy cigarettes, alcohol, sweets, kind of like the WIC program, if you guys are familiar with that. With WIC, you can buy a certain list of items, and that's it. And I think if welfare was like that, less people would want it, because you can buy anything on these things. We need to take care of our poor and needy, but we also need to try to raise them out of poverty at the same time. I think that's the main goal, is to give people a little bit of a safety net, but encourage them to empower themselves and stop generational welfare. Churches maybe should spend less time and money buying the worship team skinny jeans and fog machines, and focus on the people Jesus focused on, the poor, sick, and outcasted. With welfare, if we encourage people and give them incentive to work and better their lives, we could cut tons of money off the federal budget. So much, I think more like 40% of the budget is on programs like healthcare and welfare and stuff like that, And then with immigration, I mean, we love immigration. We need it. We need the best of the best coming to America to go through these innovations I was talking about and revolutionizing technology. And we need these bright minds here, because there's bright minds in every country all over the world, and we want them here. But there's a law of the land right now. It's been put there for a long time. And I think it's just, let's go by the law. And if you come in a different way without the law, then you're out of here. We don't put up with this, But we want people to want to come here to better their lives, but I think they should do it by the book. So we'll build a wall, and we'll put a big, beautiful gate there. Another thing that I think is important to consider is the budgets. Like, the United States yearly budget is over $4 trillion. And in the past year, we've had about a $1 trillion deficit. So we're spending $1 trillion more than we're bringing in. And it looks like that's the way government's going to go. I was hoping the President Trump would start to go after this debt, but he kind of hasn't yet. So I'm hoping he gets there, because it would be nice to trim that down, especially when we've got a bunch of socialists breathing down our neck, and they want to spend like $90 trillion on programs to make everything in the world free, which I don't understand how that would work, because someone's got to pay for it, so it's never free. And if I ran my house like the government runs its budget, I'd be bankrupt quick. And just because you're the federal government doesn't mean you get to take advantage of the financial system. They should be stewards of money too. We need to elect conservatives that will get budget under control and stop spending. So we need to vote people in that have the knowledge and smarts to figure out an actual budget. The government should actually put out a budget, and we should have access to it to see where our tax dollars are going. And and what they do now is just, they do like these 3-month budget plans where they spend a ton of money, and every 3 months you've got to do it again instead of putting out a yearly budget. We have too many government programs that we should not be funding. Like, we should not be funding abortion. That should be between a family and the doctor, and it shouldn't be all this government in there. Programs like Medicare for All, the New Green Deal, student debt forgiveness, climate change will not accomplish the desired goal, but it will crush the economy and put the United States into poverty. If you look at Venezuela, it's a great example to look at right now, because we're like on the tails of Venezuela. We're following right down the road that they're going into. Excuse me. Like, the people in Venezuela have already eaten all the zoo animals because they're starving, because the government went through and did these type of programs, the Medicare for All, free this, free that, paid for with tax dollars, and it bankrupted business. When you tax a business's income to the point where they don't have money to invest and grow, then they can't make more money. And so that's what happened down in Venezuela, is they were just choked. And now the military is going in and taking out the people. So these programs do not need to be controlled by the government at all. We need to keep the government as much as possible out of our lives and out of the free markets and out of business. They need to stick to their job. You know, protecting the country's borders, building roads, dealing with the postal service, even though that's becoming more irrelevant. And we need to use common sense ideas. Now they are radical, and they consider like conservative ideas right-wing and even racist. Conservative ideas like wanting to pull people out of poverty, wanting to fix the inner cities, wanting to bring jobs back to cities that have been in poverty and broken down for years is now considered racist for some reason. You know, we got to ignore these people, and we've got to do what's right. And a good way to do that is to let our voice be heard. And make sure we vote and encourage our friends to vote. And if they don't like us and they call us racist, forget it. Don't worry about them. The people we can reach are the people we need to. And I think it's important because we have a huge election coming up. All our values are at stake right now. And it's important that we do the right thing. And it's important that we act and we have our voice out there so that others can wake up and act. A lot of people out there are waking up to the truth. And we need to be part of that. So thank you for listening. Thank you very much.